Hey everyone, here we are at the end of the first full day of Finished Vehicle Logistics North America 2026. And, this industry has faced more change in 1 year as many might have seen over the course of their career. That's actually a quote from Anu Goel from Volkswagen Group of America, following some of the changes that I actually presented when we kicked off this morning. And that includes clearly all the tariff disruption, the Strait of Hormuz being closed and the impact that's having across supply chain costs and shipping capacity and exports to the Gulf. But on top of that, transformation and disruption across the trucking industry with some players who exited, freight variation, railroad facing perhaps some of the biggest consolidation in a generation, and the shipping industry virtually turned upside down, not just by the Iran crisis, but by rising exports from China, capacity issues. So there's a lot happening, a lot of pressure on costs, incredible pressure on costs, as Anu mentioned. But one of the messages that came across was really important. Whilst we have to reduce the cost, we have to be prepared for the recovery as well. And that was something Anu stressed, working with partners. We need to prepare scenarios, have capacity ready for when we can return to volume, shipping opens back up. You have to think ahead, otherwise you're going to fall behind. There was a sentiment echoed in many ways by Todd Myers, who leads vehicle logistics and logistics procurement at Nissan. Nissan looking more and more at total delivered cost. It's no point in cutting a rate so hard on a provider that they can't survive, and you disrupt the actual logistics and goals that you set out. Darren Acker from Hyundai Glovis said performance needs to come before cost. We need to do all that we can to measure our performance to the best levels and avoid what he said becoming a boiling frog, so a boiled frog. So to have leading indicators, to try to see where problems are happening early in the supply chain and adapt and react to them. And I think that was an important lesson for everybody. And we're seeing these changes happen across the nature of the market. For example, Anthony Pichette from General Motors talked about how GM is integrating more non-asset providers into its finished vehicle logistics sourcing and network. In fact, GM is now able to react with in spot buys in something like going from 72 hours just to 3 hours, so much more nimble in the way that it can pivot and shift to providers. And at the same time, we have a lot of focus on how we can improve auto hauler excellence in the industry, both for asset and non-asset providers. Cassandra Morgan from Mercedes-Benz USA put a big stress on trust and sharing data and deepening the partnership. She also led a workshop focused on how to reduce fraud and theft, which drew a lot of attention as well, as the industry needs to work together to address everything from quality to damage and indeed theft issues across the supply chain. So a lot happening. In the end part of the day, we also talked about launch logistics, how vehicle logistics has to prepare early in the development design phase, can understand, perhaps get CAD data to share early with carriers to test loading, but still then requiring physical testing. But I think some big steps forward in how we can use technology to prepare early for those launches. So a mix of strategic and operational aspects, a lot of disruption, but also some positive messages. Patrick Manzi from NADA, the chief economist from NADA, talked about a market that is resilient, despite all of what we mentioned, still expecting 16 million vehicle sales this year. So don't underestimate the power of the U.S. consumer, and by that nature, logistics has to be ready even in these disruptive times. So those are just some of the points coming out. We're going to continue these discussions into the day on Thursday with more focus on quality, with more focus on yard management and automation, and how we can turn some of these crises into not just survival, but success stories. So stick around. We're going to share a lot more. But as you see, we have another beautiful evening here in Huntington Beach in California. Come together and reflect more on what we learned, and I'm going to join our audience for that. Thanks so much for being with us. More to come.